where am I at on, I use the hunger scale right now as I'm beginning to eat without any sort of judgment, right? But it's like, okay, am I actually hungry? Seems like an obvious question, but a lot of us don't actually ask it, even if it's subconsciously before we go to eat, right? Oftentimes it's driven because of a certain time or whatever it is. So, asking yourself, okay, am I hungry? How hungry am I? Putting that number down. And then at the end, closing that eating occasion because you are deciding to close it, not because of portion control or whatever it is, or because of the time, but because you are owning your decision to eat and your decision to stop.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. As you know, I'm always here with you. And if you're newer around here, welcome, welcome. We're thrilled to have you. And I want to get right into it today. We have a wonderful guest joining us to really walk us through another way of connecting mind and body. So let me introduce you. She helps smart women conquer emotional eating and practice healthy, balanced eating with consistency and ease, even in the face of life's challenges. She created the gut-brain integration method to help women take control of their cravings and hunger, so eating no longer feels like an internal battle, and they are finally able to shed any excess fat they were holding on to. In fact, she worked with hundreds of women to free themselves from nonstop thinking about food and turn them into naturally balanced women who are confident about their bodies. So please help me welcome Kiki Athanas.
Oh, thank you so much. What a professional introduction. I love it. I feel super special.
Well, good. I'm so glad to have you here. And I always like to start with your story, but I don't want to interrupt you like too many times. So we'll start by telling our members what they're getting, and then we'll get into your story. Good?
Perfect.
Awesome. So members, your recipe is for fennel asparagus salad. It's raw vegan salad. You can make ahead and then pair it with your favorite protein. It goes really well with like fish, tofu, chicken, some of those lighter flavors. I think you're going to love this dressing too. It might be one that you just sort of keep in the fridge all the time. I also love this one because not only is asparagus seasonal, it also shows you how to eat it raw. And maybe you're new to fennel. So we can add another food to your repertoire, a little hand holding to get you started there. So the other thing is, in addition to your recipe, it's March, the third month of the quarter, which means it's time for your live Q&A session. So I'm doing this as a one-on-one so that it's easy to fit into everybody's schedules, including mine. I'm traveling a ton this month. So you'll also see when you click the link that there are dates available in April too. So click around, find a time that's convenient for you, 30 minutes, just you and me. I can't wait to hear your voice. So if you want this recipe or you want to hop on the phone, you and me, I can't wait to troubleshoot anything specific to you or just hear what's happening in your life. So all you have to do is make sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. When you take advantage of that full offering, you save far more than that $10 cost. P.S. In this month alone, with that one-on-one, you're saving more than the year, right? You're getting your money's worth, as they say. So seriously, a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community so that we can continue doing this with you every week. So remember, all you have to do is go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or forget remembering the URL. You can click the link in the show notes. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment method, click subscribe, and you're all set. You're going to get this week's recipe for the fennel asparagus salad and the link to schedule your quarterly live session, just you and me for 30 minutes. Awesome. All right. So Kiki, tell us your story, because you've had tremendous experience in sort of a variety of ways in this industry. And then it all came together into your work. So walk us through it.
Yes, thank you for asking. So, yeah, I very much started out in the wellness world. My first position out of university was actually with a health and wellness startup. It was an app that helped nutritionists meal plan for their clients. And that really was the start of my love of healthy eating, healthy living. I also have always loved being in front of the camera and teaching and sharing. And so I started doing various wellness workshops based in Toronto. That's where I'm originally from. And so anything from, do it yourself kombucha, talking about adaptogens. I went on to actually create an adaptogenic gummy, which is still, a company that's around today. And throughout all of this, while it started from really a positive place and a place of love, I think most of your listeners, they're moving towards wellness or they're in wellness because it feels good, right? It feels good to eat good and to exercise and all of those things until you take it to an extreme like I did. And now there is a term for it, which is orthorexia. And I very much sort of landed in that category of, it was no longer like, oh, what tastes good and will feel good for me. It became, what's the healthiest thing on the menu? And can I get it, can I have dressing on the side, right? And it just really started to consume my life. And I knew that it was a problem for years because I lived with it for years, but it didn't become a problem I wanted to fix until I became binging. I started gaining weight. I developed really severe IBS, and it really just started to consume my life, not only mentally, but also physically. I was doing all of these healthy things, and yet I was no longer reaping any of the benefits of health. I was really quite unhealthy. And even though on the outside, minus the gaining weight, I think I hit it well. And still people thought that I was healthy because I was very fixated on making healthy choices. It really became something that was not healthy and was really causing a lot of anxiety in my life. And so I sought different ways to sort of heal from it. Again, mainly because of the IBS and the yo-yo weight gain and loss that I felt totally just outside of my control. And obviously, the whole point was really control. It's really where it stemmed from. And so I did, therapy. I did like mindful eating courses, whatever. Nothing really stuck until I ended up working with this coach who really transformed the way that I think about eating. And she really brought me back to this place where I ate like I was a child, in the sense of I waited for hunger, I ate what I liked, and then I moved on with my life. And that doesn't sound super revolutionary, but it was for me at the time. And she had this recording method, which I sort of kind of tweaked to really what worked for me and kind of molded my own method from it, which I now call the gut brain integration method. I started sharing it with friends and family who I also knew were struggling with various food issues, whether it be on the side of, oh my goodness, like I eat so much and, I just feel like I'm, a prisoner to food. And they sort of relate to being more overindulgent with food. But then I also used it with my friends who I knew were very restrictive and had more kind of classic eating disorders. And the interesting thing is it worked on both sides of the pendulum because it really does bring you back to reconnecting with the visceral sensations inside of your stomach. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, I just started doing that, full time and coaching and not, beyond just my friends and family.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so interesting because, these two extremes we often think of as such different conditions, but they're really the underlying challenge is exactly the same. It's just manifesting in different ways. And so fundamentally, it's all there. And I think it's interesting because so often, like, we disconnect the food piece or that behavior from everything else in our lives, but it's really all connected, right? And I know you often say, that your gut holds your core identity, right? Like that phrase, like, do you have the guts? So walk us through what that idea of core identity has to do with our food.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love that you brought that up. So, and this all stems from multiple brain integration technique, otherwise known as MBIT. And the whole approach there is really synchronizing your head, heart, and gut brains, right? And we actually have many more, but those ones are sort of the main ones that now science has sort of been like, yes, okay, fine. There are three brains, right? And so when we think of our head brain, that's really all about strategy and, creativity. And then our heart brain is really if we're in alignment with, our core essence. Sort of we check in on our heart brain if we feel like, okay, like, is this right for me? Do I have my own back, sort of thing? And then the gut brain is really what mobilizes us into action, right? And so when we think about the person that it's like, yeah, okay, I know what to do, head brain. It feels like it's the right thing for me, heart brain, but I'm not doing it, right? Then it's like, okay, there's something there, the gut brain, that's out of alignment. So that's why I say the gut holds our core identity. And really, as you say, do you have the guts? Are you willing to sort of take that action? And so, in terms of how that relates to food, well, if there's something off in, the actions in our lives and how we're actually showing up, and, if we're out of alignment with what we're doing in our day to day, then guess what? That can manifest as gut issues, inflammation in the gut, which we heal through our thoughts and our actions, not necessarily through our food. Our food is a component to all of that. And so it's really this almost, in a way, it's separation from food being, food is when we pause in life, and, everything else is actually movement in life. And oftentimes when there's something going on with the gut, or whether it be weight or food or whatever, we're looking at like, oh, it must be the gluten, or it must be the dairy that I'm eating, or it must be that I'm just eating too late at night. And as you say, there's oftentimes an actual life issue going on, and everything is very, very connected. And so I'm really all about, okay, sure, like, we can work with where you're at. I'm not going to make you have dairy if you don't want to, right? But it's not the dairy. It's, what are your thoughts that you're thinking? Where are you in your life? Who are you with? Like, what's going on that is essentially causing you to go off of your path? And I see this every time with my clients. There's something off in their life. And for anyone listening right now is struggling with any sort of food issue, right? If I ask you to really consider truthfully, if you had the perfect life that you had, not that that's ever possible, but let's just, humor me, would you ever over or under eat? No, right? Most people are like, of course not, right? Because we're using food or the restriction of food as a buffer, right, to move through life, as a way to soften the discomfort or to avoid what's going on in life. Because when we are at balance, aka we're not, under or overfed, we can truly feel our core identity. And if that is scary and if that's uncomfortable, then we're using food to, as I say, sort of buffer our way through it. So now I'm realizing I can't even remember specifically your question. I don't know if I answered it, but I rambled on about a related topic either way.
No, it makes total sense. Right. We were asking about sort of like what the food has to do with like, our core identity. And so we're going to talk about sort of synchronizing like the head, heart, and gut brains, right? And maybe I've heard of this in the phrases of like coherence and heart math.
Exactly. It's basically a different word for it. Exactly.
Will you explain what those are so that people we're all sort of talking from the same page here?
Right. Yes. Sometimes when you're talking with other wellness people, you just drop this verbiage and not realize that everyone else has read all the books. So essentially coherence is really when there's communication between your head, heart, and gut. And on a graph, and that's really where the heart math comes in. It's essentially this smooth looping. If we were to actually track, the coherence within your body. And again, it's that easy flowing communication between the head, the heart, and the gut brain. Now, coherence might be sort of a scary or just a big word, right? And it sounds super fancy, but essentially getting into a coherent state, or, perhaps even some people might call it a meditative state, doesn't mean that you have to be a monk and like drink green tea and, like quit your day job. It literally can be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, a little bit slower than usual and a little bit deeper than usual. And I like to do it by putting my hand on my belly and really breathing from that place. And depending on where you're at in terms of, if you are already a fairly calm, present person versus if you're super anxious and in complete burnout, it can take moments and a couple deep breaths, or you might need to be at it for perhaps over a minute, right? But the good thing is it's not impossible to get to within minutes for anyone, right? Which I think is really something powerful to keep in mind, even with the approach that I use with eating. It's not this like, okay, well, in 3 months, you might have a better relationship with food or whatever. Like, that's the beautiful thing about intuitive eating, really connecting with yourself. The gains and the wins from it can happen within a single meal, right? If you set the intention to create the calm, right? And that's how I sort of intertwine it with eating. It's oftentimes we use food to ground us, to calm down, to take a break, whatever. Those are all inappropriate uses of food. And food is to care for the physical body when hungry. And that doesn't mean that we can't enjoy it. Of course, we're meant to be tasting foods that we enjoy. That's why we have taste buds. But we're not using the food to calm us and to ground us, right? And so we have to create that coherence, that calm before we eat so that we can properly rest and digest and be present to our food so that we can get all of the benefits of it so that we can enjoy it. And it's really that mindset shift of, just like take a break, sit down, have something to eat. And it's almost like we're approaching it like the food is going to fix us. And it's like, no, 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 no. We use our thoughts and our actions to, quote unquote, fix us. The food is to really care for the physical body when hungry. It's not meant to be the medicine for everything.
Yeah, I love the way you explain that because I feel like often the difference between knowing what to do and actually doing it is understanding why. And so I feel like you've given us the why of like the reason behind doing this work, right?
Yeah.
What do you say to the person who's like, this all just sounds kind of woo-woo? Like, what's the science or where does this like fit into sort of the logic brain?
Yes. Perfect. So I'm actually not even a woo-woo person at all. Like if someone even asks me, like, what's your zodiac? I'm like, let's talk about something. So here's the thing. This isn't like woo-woo, fluffy stuff because I will be completely honest with you. None of that stuff worked for me. I tried it all. When I was suffering with food, with, various disordered eating habits, tendencies, etc. I did all the woo-woo stuff, right? It's, you need to connect with yourself. You need to love yourself. Like, take a deep breath. I was like, okay, yeah, that's not really working for me. I need someone to actually fix me, right? And so here's the thing. When we are coherent, that is health. We are literally coming back to our equilibrium. And here are the facts. The body wants to be healthy. The body also doesn't want excess storage, right? I like to use the word storage over fat because fat is such a horrible word. And so, that is the best, we're all looking for a supplement or like a thing that we can do or take, right? To really, optimize our health, especially in this age of like biohacking and all that jazz, right? Literally, I'm sorry to give you the boring newsflash, but like literally taking some deep breaths is like going to be your recipe for success. And again, I know that feels so anticlimactic, but the studies have really, really shown that for all diseases, illnesses, which genuinely all stem from this emotional connection, whether you want to believe it or not. And the good thing is you don't even need to, right? Like, do you need to become some like spiritually enlightened higher consciousness that like talks about their higher self all the time? No.
No.
Do you even need to believe what I'm saying is true? No. Do it. And you'll experience the benefits either way. And so it's interesting because even amongst my clients, I do attract sort of, I would say 50% of the people that are like, yeah, I go to yoga, I do this, like, they're very into like self-development, all this stuff. And then I get the people that are just like, Kiki, like I'm overweight, food rules my life, but like, don't give me all the like woo-woo crap, right? And I give them the exact same thing either way. And either way it works, right? So I would say, if there is something that you're looking to heal as it relates to your relationship with food, regardless of if it feels woo-woo or not, give it a shot. And it doesn't even matter if you believe it.
I love that. All right. So I feel like this is a good place for us to pause, let all of that sink in while we highlight our partner for this episode. And then we'll come back with like the nuts and bolts of coherence and this synchronizing.
Beautiful.
Awesome. So big thanks to Layered Jewelry for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. The modern woman is multifaceted, taking on many important roles in the various aspects of her life. Inspired by her own multi-layered life as a busy mom, trendsetter, entrepreneur, and influencer, Amber Ridinger McLaughlin set out to create a line of jewelry that lets women create their unique style and celebrate their own beautiful layers. Layered is luxurious and affordable, the perfect combination for the modern woman. Layered allows you to mix, match, stack, and layer pieces that make you feel empowered and beautiful. Each piece is handcrafted to be unique and exquisite just for you. So, not gonna lie, sometimes, buying myself a gift, right? Like an anchor of sorts can help align my head and heart. All right, I tried. It maybe didn't work, but here's what I think you want to do. Buy something for yourself, or if you need a gift, there are great options at every price. The Winnie stackable rings, it's 3 rings for under $40. Like, amazing. I was wearing another ring the other day and got so many compliments on it. So, highly recommend layered jewelry. Plus, you get 10% off and free shipping for being a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. So, simply text the word layered 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, text the word layered, LAYERED, to 844-947-4846 to get this handcrafted, luxurious, and affordable jewelry at 10% off plus free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Kiki, give us the how, right? You talked about breathing, slower, deeper breathing. Walk us through it, and what else can we do?
Yes. Okay. So here's what I get my clients to do. Yes, the breathing, of course. And that can be used, of course, in the moment, but really ideally multiple times throughout the day to really get comfortable with a lack of urgency and a lack of intensity. Oftentimes when we're struggling with food issues, it's because we're addicted to intensity, right? Chewing is intense. Eating, it's an intense thing to do, right? And so even when our body is craving a break, because we're still addicted to intensity, we're like, okay, well, I'll eat, still, kind of give myself a break from other things, but I still get to have that intensity, right? And so coherence, practiced ideally at least 3 times a day, each a couple minutes each, will help to soften that, desire for urgency and intensity throughout the day. First things first, when you wake up, I always ask my clients to catch the thoughts. When we're suffering with more so on kind of like the depression side, oftentimes our thoughts are more in what has happened, right? And interestingly enough, those clients and those people are often the ones that are suffering with more stagnant digestive issues. And then if you wake up and you're catching your thoughts and you're always 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps ahead, you kind of bear more on the anxious side, and you just are always wanting to get things done, check things off the list, then you have a hyperactive, oftentimes, gut. And that just, again, goes to show the direct connection with the head and the gut brain. And no surprise, those clients are often dealing with diarrhea, right? And so I always ask my clients to catch the thoughts, where are they? Are they positive, negative, or neutral? And how can you bring them back to the moment, right? And how can you really, and it doesn't need to be toxic positivity of like giving yourself a gazillion affirmations of like, I am beautiful, I am rich, right? No, 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 no. It's literally just reminding yourself that I am here now, right? And that's why taking a nice deep breath, it really helps to ground you, because here's the facts. Eating is in the moment. Eating has nothing to do with what you ate before or what you are going to eat after, right? The only way to eat properly is to connect with the feeling in your stomach and your whole body right now. And so we need to start incorporating that presence, that present awareness in the now, beyond just our meal times, but also in the day to day, right? And oftentimes women will say like, wow, I didn't realize like I'm rushing through everything. It's not just food. It's like I'm constantly rushing to get to the next thing, right? And so, Eckhart Tolle is all about, just arrive now, right? Because even when we're on vacation, it's like, okay, I need to catch the bus, then I need to catch the train. Then when we get to the hotel, we're like, okay, now I need to go to the buffet. Like, it's like we never arrive, right? And so that's one of the practical things. And then I always have my clients actually record their eating. And I don't want to scare anyone away, because I know that a lot of people have had bad experiences with recording their food, right? Like the macro counting and like all that jazz. Don't worry, that's not what I'm talking about. But it's really about recording the feeling inside of your stomach before and after you eat. And this becomes a little bit layered on when I work with clients one-on-one, but essentially for anyone listening now that does want to deepen their connection to their gut and really tap into those hunger and satiety cues, it's really checking in with, okay, where am I at on, I use the hunger scale right now as I'm beginning to eat without any sort of judgment, right? But it's like, okay, am I actually hungry? Seems like an obvious question, but a lot of us don't actually ask it, even if it's subconsciously before we go to eat, right? Oftentimes it's driven because of a certain time or whatever it is. So, asking yourself, okay, am I hungry? How hungry am I? Putting that number down. And then at the end, closing that eating occasion because you are deciding to close it, not because of portion control or whatever it is, or because of the time, but because you are owning your decision to eat and your decision to stop. And then checking in with, okay, do I feel good? Do I feel, I use the word balanced versus full? Because full can often feel sort of heavy, right? If I were to ask you, do you want to feel full right now? No one would really be like, yeah, I want to feel full, right? But like, do you want to feel energized, balanced, like you could go for a walk and not feel like weighed down. So again, it's that coherent breathing multiple times throughout the day, catching the thoughts first thing in the morning, and then recording your food. And again, that's never, I always get my like A-type perfectionists that are like, do you want me to like put down like what it is that I'm eating? Or like I could weigh it and scale. I'm like, no, I don't care. Like it's your own decision
Totally.
what it is that you eat.
Exactly. So it's so funny you say that. So by the way, like I often use the word like satisfied or content,
Perfect.
you know?
Exactly.
So for everybody, by the way, we did a nutrition nugget called Hunger Ratings. It's probably quite a while ago, but you can definitely find it in the salad with a side of fries feed to go back on that. But so essentially, Kiki, what I'm hearing is that with all of those pieces, the breathing, the catching the thoughts, the catching the hunger and satiety, we're inherently separating the time for food from everything else.
Yes. Oh my God. And that is like the table of my teachings, right? Like it's like we really have to look at, there's food, which is a pause, it's a break in life. And then there's everything else, which I call the movement of life. And if you look at cultures that tend to not have sort of as much issues with food, right? Even though, like, for instance, France, right? Oh, but they eat gluten and butter and refined sugar. And yet, not necessarily struggling with the same level of, whether it be obesity or disordered eating on the other side. And guess what? What is a key factor there? They're stopping to eat. They sit down, which literally just the act of sitting down puts your body, it sends a signal to the brain that you are safe, right? And so again, that's helping to initiate the rest and digest. It's helping to sort of invite in those chemicals that help us digest and assimilate food and nutrients, right? And then when they're done, they stop, aka close the eating occasion, and move on with their life. Now, we've all heard it before, right? It's like, oh, pause to eat, mindful eating, blah, blah. It's so interesting. Once you commit to doing it, you realize how much you don't, right? Because most of my clients, when I start, they're like, I eat some presents sometimes, like, yeah, maybe sometimes I multitask, but for the most part. And then they realize they're like, wow, Kiki, I never eat presently. Like I am always doing something, right? Because I'm not talking about just the times that you're, stuffing, I don't know, a bowl of grapes in your mouth while you're on a Zoom. I'm talking about even at dinner time when you are not present with your food. You're scrolling on your phone or you're listening to a podcast while also half cleaning the kitchen, while also prepping, your son's lunches for tomorrow and like whatever it is. And so it's like, what is that resistance to connect with yourself? And for some of us, it's literally just habit and it's not so emotionally charged. And so it's more so a decision to be like, okay, wow, now that I have the facts, and again, going back to the recording so that we can get that information, right? It's collecting data. Now that I have the facts, I can make the decision to be like, okay, I'm going to be more mindful with my meals. And for a lot of us, it is more of just that decision to change. I love the quote that change isn't a process, it's a decision, right? And so for some, again, because there's not necessarily like an underlying thread of emotional trauma there. It is more of just like an awareness of, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to decide to actually sit and be present to my meal. But then for some of us, there's actually this resistance to connect with themselves, right? Because eating is such an intimate ritual and experience that we have with ourselves. And again, going back to the gut holds our core identity, if there's something that feels like we're living out of alignment, it can feel really uncomfortable. Or, if you were somehow picked up as a child that like, no, like there's no time for me to experience joy or pleasure or whatever it is, then that act of just sitting and enjoying our food feels really weird and scary and uncomfortable, and almost like there's this underlying head chatter of like, I don't deserve this right now. I need to go and do something more productive. I need to go and, create or clean or, just do something that feels like it has utility. And it's really about rewriting the script that it's like, yeah, I am allowed to experience pleasure. There is space in my life to experience joy. And I still remember the day that my coach asked me, because she started talking about sugar. And I was like, oh my goodness, of course I don't eat sugar, right? I was like, I can do this whole intuitive eating thing, but like, obviously, like I can't have a refined sugar, like obviously. And I was like, waiting for her to obviously agree, right? Like sugar is the devil of everything. And she didn't. She was like, there's nothing wrong with sugar, Kiki. She was like, what's the problem? I was like, oh my God, do you want me to bring out the studies of like all the bad things on sugar? Like I was like ready for it, right? And she was like, where did you learn? Or like, when did you learn? Like, you are not allowed to experience pleasure, right? And I remember just like bawling when she said, I'm not like direct quoting, but it was something that she
Yeah.
basically just sort of like pulled out, that it's like, you're allowed to just have joy for the sake of having joy without it like being a means to an end. And I realized that that was the reason I didn't want to just sometimes eat foods that tasted good for me, because I felt like I didn't deserve it and that it wasn't enough. If something wasn't a means to an end, then why would I do it? Because I wasn't allowed to.
It's so interesting. Like it's so connected, right? Like we get these wires crossed. And so I have two questions and I can't decide like what to ask first. So I guess on one extreme, I could hear somebody go, this sounds exhausting and like a lot, right? Like you want me to track all these things and think about all these things. What do you say to that person?
Oh my God, I'm so happy you asked, because it's not. So here's the thing. So I'm asking you to breathe multiple times a day, a little bit deeper and a little bit slower. Is that going to take up any more extra of your time? No. So boom, next, like that's limiting belief. Like let's bust through it, right? Tracking, recording. So interestingly enough, I make recording so fast and simple that I do not take the excuse of I don't have time. If you had time to pick up a fork and put it near your mouth, then you had time to get out a pen and write one letter or number, because it's always just one letter or number, around how your gut is feeling, right? And if you don't have time for that, then there are other things going on in your life that like you need to figure out. Because if you don't have an extra 10 seconds before you put something into your mouth to feel how you're feeling, like what's going on, right? And so, no, it's not an excuse and it's not a lot. And it's about reframing like, oh, why is taking care of myself and feeling my feelings and being present like an obstacle to me getting everything done? Because it's not, right? And then I often use the kind of the reframe, or sort of just the realization of like, how much time do you spend thinking about eating, thinking about not eating, feeling bad about how much you ate? If I gave you all that time back and then now I'm asking you to like take an extra 10 seconds in your day to like write something down, I think you're still winning here, right? And so it's really about, and I know for myself, like now I feel so much more productive because I'm actually present to my life, right? Rather than just, feeling productive because I'm eating and like looking at I don't know, an email. It's like, am I really being more productive? Am I getting that email done faster? No, I'm sitting watching the email while eating and tricking myself into thinking that somehow I'm like getting more done. But really, if I were to sit down, have the bowl of grapes for 5 minutes at my kitchen table, and then walk over to the email and actually do the email, have I lost any time? No, I haven't. And if anything, I probably gained it because I was more present to the email. I could just get it done. right? And so again, it's really catching this like desire to like, oh no, but I don't have time. I have to multitask, whatever. And I do get that. So I'm so happy you brought it up because I do get it a lot where I'm like, okay, so now you're going to be present with your food. And I can see women that they're like, Kiki, you don't get it. Like I have kids, whatever. I'm like, oh, you don't have time to eat. You don't have time to sit down and eat. Because if that is genuinely feels true for you that you do not have time to eat, then it's about finding the truth in yes, I do, right? And it's about finding that worthiness piece of actually, like, I do have time to, and I can make time to sit down for 10 minutes and be present with my food. And, not everything in my world will fall apart and I won't be a bad mom or like a bad employee or whatever for doing that. And it's kind of like setting the worth and the standard for yourself to exist so that you can eventually thrive.
Absolutely. And I love that you framed it that way too, because I often find that like those are the people who need it the most. And I've been there.
Same.
Listen, we're all a work in progress. I say it all the time. Like,
Totally.
even this morning, I ate my breakfast listening to a podcast, you know,
Mhm.
right?
It's okay. You're
So,
aware.
right, we're human. And then my other question, and you brought this up in sharing your story with orthorexia, right? Of healthful behavior sort of taken to an extreme. How do we ensure that this doesn't progress into that too?
Okay, so I'm so happy that you asked because I've actually trained a few of my clients into actually teaching this method as well. And there are a couple key things that I make sure that like never do this because then we're feeding the problem, not helping it, right? And so number one, it's there's no judgment on food. All food is neutral, right? Like, and that doesn't mean that like all food is healthy or all food is unhealthy. It just means that, going back to sort of all foods fit, right? And again, getting back to the science, we all have unique microbiomes. So, what's healthy for one person at one point in their life could be very unhealthy, quote unquote, for another person at another point in their life, right? Like, nothing is healthy for everyone and nothing is unhealthy for everyone, right? And so, other than negative thoughts, that's unhealthy for everyone, right? But in terms of food, right? And so, it's really catching, and with this method, it's not about the perfect recording. It's about being connected. It's not about the perfect choices. It's about making connected choices, right? And I do catch, when my clients are recording and I'm seeing that they're doing it from this place of like, oh, like gotta be the perfect like client or student or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, no, it's about being connected, right? Because if you do it from this energy of like, oh, I want to do this so that it's perfect, that's not sustainable, right? And so we need to do it from a place of genuine self care and love so that we also banish that feeling of that worry that it's like, oh my God, am I going to be able to keep this up? And even when my clients are doing it and it's like feeling good and feeling easy, they do express that it's like, Kiki, there is a little piece of me that just worries that it's like, am I going to be able to keep this up? And I'm like, keep up what? You're making connected choices. Like you're literally like you're breathing and you're being you. Like, but I think we're so programmed that like when things are going right or like, when we're feeling good about how we're eating or living or whatever, there is that voice inside of us that it's like this is eventually going to stop. Like eventually like all the goodness is going to go, right? And so we have to catch. I'm like, wait a second. Why am I thinking that? Oh, because the other things that I were doing weren't sustainable. I was putting myself in a form of deprivation. I was, I was starving myself. I was doing all these things. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm always maximizing the abundance of pleasure in my body, right? Because if you're hungry, to increase pleasure, it would be eating. If you're not hungry, increasing pleasure would not be eating. It would be doing something else, right? And so as long as you're focused on how can I maximize the abundance of pleasure in my gut and in my body right now, you're winning, right? You're doing all the things. And is that sustainable? Yeah, it is if you can always, make time and make a conscious effort energetically to put yourself first, right? And so the underlying theme in all of this is ultimately showing up worthy, right? And so it's never about perfection. It's always about being connected, right? And a mantra that I use with my clients is like, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be me, right? And it's really about owning your wants and not feeling bad about wanting what it is that you want, whether it be with food, whether it be with relationships, with work, with anything, right? And I think especially as women, we feel like to want what we want sometimes feels a little bit shameful or scandalous, but it isn't.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's a great place to put a pin in it, right? It's like, how do I increase joy in this moment and being me versus being perfect? Love it.
Yeah,
Awesome. All right, it's time for a rapid fire off topic questions. Are you ready?
I'm so ready. I'm not ready at all, but I think that's the point.
Exactly. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
Ooh, the best thing I've done for my health this week is I'm on vacation with my mom in San Miguel de Allende, and it's a magical Puebla in Mexico. And I just feel so happy here. And so that's definitely the best thing I've done for my health this week. The worst thing I've done for my health this week is I've been going to a lot of events and socializing, and my little guilty pleasure is I overdo it with perfume. And so I feel like I've probably killed quite a few brain cells in the last week of just like spritzing my perfume all the time. I can sort of taste it right now in my mouth because I'm about to go to an event. So that's definitely fun.
That's so funny. Well, first of all, thank you for joining us from vacation. Love it.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And I appreciate we made it work. We did our best on the audio in your, you know, lodging on vacation. So thank you. All right. If you weren't an intuitive eating coach, what would you do?
Ooh, I feel like I would be a creative director of God knows what. But I also do
A
like
perfume
work sort
house.
of on the side. I love to direct photo shoots. I used to run a modeling agency. I'm really all about aesthetic. So I think that I would be I remember when I was a teen and someone told me like I'm a creative director. I was like, "Oh my god, I want to be a creative director." Like I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what they were directing, but I was like, I want to do that. So that's what I would do.
Amazing. All right. Your favorite book could be fiction or nonfiction, but it can't be a book in your area of expertise.
Okay, cool. I would say The Source by Dr. Tara Swart, I believe is her last name. It's a book on manifestation, but she's like a neuroscientist. She's like very, very science driven. And she's sort of just like we were talking about today, pulling out the woo from these kind of woo topics, right? And it was so powerful for me. And I remember reading that book on a vacation in Miami, and literally the week after, like my life just began to change. Like that was like right after I like quit my job, like everything changed because I literally read this book and it was like vision boarding on crack.
I love it. All right. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
I would say depression. I think
Mm,
that ultimately, like, and I'm saying depression with the sense of like, I think we all have parts of it, right? And I'm not an expert in depression. I feel like it's such a charged topic that I don't want to say anything that's going to like offend anyone. But I think that ultimately, if you could cure sadness, not to say that sadness is bad and that we can't experience it, but when it becomes something that does become an actual ailment and an illness, then the world would be a happier and therefore a more present place.
yes. All right. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Ooh, I think it would be the power of belief. If I could literally trick myself into
That's a good
fully
one.
believing anything, then anything would be possible.
Oh, magic. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Slow walkers. Right now I'm in San Miguel de Allende and the streets are so small, like they're so like narrow and it's just oh my god. I always get stuck next to the slow walkers. Like I get we're all on vacation here people, but like let's pick it up.
As a New Yorker, I feel you. All right. Last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
Ooh, it is I think it's honestly like just clearing up all of this in wellness that has been built up. It's really about breaking down all of the limiting beliefs that wellness culture, quote unquote, has made us believe. And so it's really about, I think the next frontier is bioindividuality, perhaps, like really reconnecting with our own selves and finding tools and methods and strategies and all of these things to harness our own inner wellness from a place of intuition. Obviously, I'm biased, but that is my thought, versus trying to seek the next thing that's going to fix us or make us better because we're all already perfect. It's just a matter of surrendering to that.
Oh, I love it so much. That's why we're here, right? Clearing up the confusion in wellness. So
Amen.
Kiki, thank you again for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to find you, all the things.
Perfect. So it's very easy. My name is Kiki Athanas. And so on Instagram, I'm Kiki_Athanas. I also have a website, Kiki Athanas. And basically, I'm Kiki Athanas everywhere.
Perfect. And we'll put links to everything in the show notes too.
Perfect.
Awesome. So are you ready for this week's nutrition nugget? So on Friday, we're talking about popcorn just in time for the Oscars.
Perfect.
Well, Kiki, thank you again for being here.
Thank you. It was such a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is A Salad with a Side of Fries. Wherever you want to reach out, please share your key takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. And of course, if you're not already a member, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. It shows your support for this podcast and this community, but most importantly, it truly supports your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the fennel asparagus salad and the link to schedule your quarterly live session, just you and me for 30 minutes, which I can't wait to chat with you. So until next week, maybe we want to make some extra effort to remove the other activity from the experience of eating. Taste each bite, engage all of our senses, and connect the mind and body. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform, share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it and you are worth it. Happy healthy.